You know, over the years, I have just been watching, and I really admire her heart for the Lord and her character. She's such a diligent worker. She's a good delegator. And then, of course, her beauty.
Austin and I are probably closer than most of the rest of the brothers, maybe. I mean, I kind of had the inside scoop on a few things on that. So it was something that just kind of like a ton of bricks hit him one day.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday, April 11th. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It's been a minute since we've talked about Joanna Duggar or Joanna Forsythe, and I thought, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk. Okay, I know, let's talk. So we know that in December it was a really tough time for Joy. We know that testimony in court was excruciating for her. She didn't testify, but what they talked about related to her, which created a lot of sadness for her. And following the verdict, we sort of thought, well, maybe now that Joy has kind of learned the truth and better understands what happened, and there's a resolution here, that maybe she would take the time and the separation to sort of further separate herself, maybe from her father, from her mother, I don't know, just, sort of take some independence of her own and maybe draw closer to her sisters. There was hope that because Jill was at the trial, that Jill and Joy might reconnect. There was hope that Jill and Joy's relationship could become repaired because of that commonality of what happened, as well as Jill being, in many ways a mother figure to Joy. And so we all sort of waited with bated breath, hoping that a reunion would happen. Well, Joy and Austin kind of took a hiatus after the trial, and I think a lot of them probably needed a break from online. And there was a lot of backlash, and I think no matter what, it's not the fault of the girls. It's not a fault of all of the members of the family for what Josh did. It's Josh's issue, but it's also, a problem that his parents didn't handle correctly, in my opinion. So, the backlash for all the family members, I don't believe was warranted, but the public had a lot to say. So Joy and Austin kind of take a month off, and we're like, all right, so, maybe Joy and Austin are kind of going to do their own thing. Maybe they're going to sort of separate from the IBLP. Maybe they're going to separate themselves from the situation, maybe move in a completely different direction. I mean, even the sources I was talking to at the time felt like there could be a serious disconnect, like maybe that Joy and Austin were going to take that step and sort of break free. Well, I don't know what has gone on or how this all played out, but it looks like Joy is actually drawn in closer to the group, and she's not with her sisters, but she's with her sister-in-laws, which was kind of surprising to me, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I actually found these through one of my subscribers who found them on Instagram, and Joy was recently at an event with some of her sister-in-laws, with Nathan Bates' wife and two women I don't recognize, but Katie Duggar and Abby Duggar, her sister-in-laws, John's wife and Jed's wife, and Joy with Esther, who is Nathan Bates' wife, all together for a tea and talk themed get together. And they got a plant exchange, and it was so much fun. I also noticed that as I was looking through this woman's same information and account, that they also had a Galentine's Day party. So on her Galentine's Day party, she said, "So thankful for these friendships that are and what our get-togethers mean to me. God knew I needed y'all. I love how our seasonal parties always come at the right time for me. I always leave so refreshed and encouraged. Swipe to see our last one, Christmas. I can't wait for next year." So it looks like at Christmas, the ladies all got together for making wreaths. They had a Galentine's party. They did a tea and time and plant exchange. So I don't know, again, who these ladies are, but it is clear that the relationship that she has is now not including her sisters. And I don't know, like before, they did a whole wreath thing with all of the sisters. And, well, Jill wasn't there, but, you know, Lauren was around and Kendra was around and Jessa was there. Jana was there. So what I found unique here is that, one, Jana wasn't included in this group. So I don't know if Jana is separated from that group or if this is a group of married women. Then I also noticed that Jessa's not involved. So I don't know if this is a group of women from church. I don't know if they're all at the same church today. I know that the Duggars had recently changed churches. So I remember, if you remember, I told you that there was a big dust up that happened with Paul Caldwell's church. And that church was Lighthouse Baptist Church. And Jim Bob decided that he was going to leave. And some of the other Duggars decided they were going to leave too because they just didn't like whatever happened. So there was this big split that happened there, okay? And Jim Bob and a bunch of the kids went to a new church called Gospel Light Baptist Church. So many lights and Baptists all together. Gospel Light, Lighthouse Baptist, you know, like, did you see that? Okay. And the Gospel Light is more of it's like a larger congregation. It is still independent fundamentalist Baptist. The pastor is a little bit more modern, a lot less legalistic than Paul Caldwell. So one of the issues my sources had told me back then was that Paul is a very legalistic person and he has a lot of rules, and the Duggars were just not really vibing. So the older kids did not like all of the rules of the church. So now they're at a new church and Jess is at a different church. And I wonder if this is like a church combination or church friends. What I think is kind of odd though is that Esther's included in all of these because Esther Bates they live in Tennessee. So I don't know how Esther got woven into this. I don't know if Esther and Nathan have actually moved to Arkansas. I don't know if they just spend more time in Arkansas these days. I know that, so Nathan and John have Medicorp together, and I don't know if Nathan has decided to, you know, move down to Arkansas and to be with Medicorp full time now that Bringing Up Bates is over. But it is interesting to me that Esther is down there as much as she has been. Tennessee and Arkansas are not super close to each other. It's not like they're in Missouri right across the border or Oklahoma. They're up kind of further northeast from Arkansas. But they also have planes, so, you know, a jaunt from Tennessee down to Arkansas isn't that huge of a thing. But what kind of surprises me in all of this is that, like, Jessa has seemingly been, like, removed from that situation. And this is the part where I'm like, okay, so Ginger is in California. Obviously, there's not going to be get-togethers that involve Ginger. Jill is, like, not involved with the family very much, right? So she's not going to be involved with any of the sisters-in-laws, or any of them, right? John and Abby are still part of the IBLP. Nathan and Esther are still part of the IBLP. Katie and Jed are still part of the IBLP. So that makes me believe that Austin and Joanna are part of the IBLP still. It makes me feel like it's like they're all still, like, because she's gravitating to the people that are still in the group. Jessa and Ben are not part of the IBLP. Ben has never been a part of the IBLP. Ben has his own church. He's a what's called Reformed Baptist, not the same theology as the Duggars, and not members of the Institute in Basic Life Principles. Ben did not grow up in that world, and Ben's not a member of it. Jessa has done, you know, some conferences here and there as an adult, but not as much. So I feel like Jessa and Ben are kind of separating from that. And you can kind of see that in that Jessa her kids are allowed to dance. She was out buying a guitar. She's wearing ripped jeans. So she's getting a little bit more progressive, although not, you know, she's still a fundamentalist, but you know what I mean? Like, she's evolving. And Joy is kind of sticking into the more conservative IBLP group. So long story short, I kind of like rambling today because it's been like a couple days since we've had our chats. What surprised me about this was that I've always looked at the girls as kind of like this core unit. I always felt like what they went through as kids kind of like bonded them in a way that they were like, they were unbreakable. Like they were there for one another. They would always support one another, and that they couldn't be like torn apart. And what I feel like I'm watching is that the girls that were so close knit have all kind of like dispersed, with only one kind of like sticking in there and sticking to the group, and the other girls, the older ones, being kind of like slowly extricating themselves from the situation. And I don't know if it's that Joy, you know, she did grow up with all of the boys, and I know that she was always very close to Jed, so it shouldn't surprise me that she would be close to Katie, because she and Jed and Jeremiah were so close. She was also super close with Joseph, and she was very close with like Jackson and James, Jason, and Justin, but obviously Justin's in Texas, so she can't spend all kinds of time with Justin anymore. And she's always had a good relationship with John, so maybe, I don't know. It's just odd that she's picking the boys. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, why aren't you picking your girls? Like, why can't the girls get together? Like, what the girls went through is so horrific. I wish they would be together. I wish they could rely on one another. I wish they could, you know, find commonality together and support one another. And instead, it kind of feels like the situation has torn them apart. And that's really sad. And I don't know if that's a product of the family, if it's a lack of support from the parents, it's the way that it was played out familial, or if it's the patriarchy of this group. I don't know, but I was hoping for something different. I still have hope that they will all come together, but for now it looks like Joy has made her pick, and it's not her sisters. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.